One thing's for sure, there's going to be a general election come March or May. We've come along to talk to Tobias Ellwood, Conservative MP for Bournemouth, about the situation and how he sees the general election looming. This appears to be a fascinating time for a general election.
It's well overdue. I think the nation is getting very frustrated, as we are in Westminster, for waiting for Gordon Brown to actually make a decision. We thought it might be in 2007, in October, you might recall. We're all geared up for it, and then he decided to bottle it. And since then, it's been the same lack of courage and determination which we've seen in many of the decision-making, which has resulted in the mess that we're in today. So I think the nation is well overdue an election.
The Labour Party seem to have made an awful lot of mistakes over their time in office. If there was one that you had to pick out, what would it be that stands above all the others?
I think it has to be the economy. Because from a strong economy, you can build so many other things. If your economy is weak, then there isn't the money to do anything else.
But whoever forms the next government are instantly going to become so unpopular because they're going to have to raise taxes or they're going to have to find money to pay off the debts that we find ourselves in.
Well, there's two processes there. There's, first of all, is managing the paying back of that debt, and that has to be done sensibly and responsibly and pretty swiftly as well. So there, of course, will be a couple of years of hardship. But there's also what can we do to ensure that small, medium-sized businesses are able to flourish as best they can through these hard times.
There seems to be also bubbling along the whole notion that the Conservative Party, the Conservative shadow cabinet, are full of toffs and therefore have no understanding of what real life is about.
I don't think I'd agree with that at all. You have a makeup of all sorts of people from different backgrounds. We have policies, wide-ranging policies, which look to try and mend our broken society, which look to give more independence to schools, which look to see better spending of the huge changes in budgets to the NHS, which look to give greater strength to localism, to trusting individuals, having a sense of community, a sense of responsibility to the individual. This is huge changes from where we were before.
For the first time in a general election, the leaders are going to be debating on television, which is going to revitalise, I think, the whole process. Do you think that, though, may lead us to a more presidential style of Prime Minister than we have now?
I think the consequence of these debates will actually encourage more people to pay attention to what's actually happening. The exposure that candidates get in elections now is huge. You can't really escape it, and everybody then has a view. And that means more participation. And there's always been a worry that not enough people come out and vote. And I think this will be very helpful in enthusing people to participate in their elections, participate in making the decision of who's going to represent them and represent the country.
How are you actually going to encourage people to get out and to vote and to engage in the political debate?
Two aspects. One is things that don't change, which is simply getting onto the doorstep, knocking on the doors and meeting people and then explaining your views and your policies and so forth. That is actually important. The second is also to look at the reasons why the Westminster stock has fallen and say, what are you going to do about it? And of course, it's the election expenses which you're referring to. We have introduced new rules, more transparency into the system. It was a complete mess. 20 years ago, MPs weren't strong enough to actually increase their salary along with teachers, doctors, armed forces and civil servants. So they created this second homes allowance, which has all been very secretive and so forth, been exposed by the Daily Telegraph as being taken advantage of. So we now need a fresh system which makes sure that every single penny, taxpayers' money, can be accounted for and is spent correctly. I certainly hope, and this is a plea to all the candidates, Labour and Lib Dems, that we do fight this election locally on the issues and it doesn't deteriorate into a slagging match of personalities, because that doesn't help the electorate. In fact, I think it turns the electorate off.
How can members of the public be assured that what is in the manifesto will actually be implemented into policy?
We've been very careful about that. In fact, in previous years, which is one of the reasons why I think we have not won the elections, is we've made promises which were too far-fetched for the electorate to recognise or see whatever been coming into fruition. So we've been very careful about spending commitments, making sure that we only make announcements which have been costed and only making promises which we can make sure we can honour. And that's why perhaps there is this frustration that perhaps we've not heard enough detail from the Conservatives. That, of course, more detail will come when the official general election starts, as opposed to sort of the phony war that we're in now. But it's a very important point. You're absolutely right. We've been caught out in this in the past, and we're making every effort to make sure it doesn't happen this time around.
There's no doubt that at the moment we're in what I suppose could be called a phony election period. No doubt when the manifestos are written and the policies are known, there'll be much more for us to debate and to talk about. This is Steve Parcell reporting for Vision News South.